BlackRock might be on the verge of a shocking XRP move. Now I know that sounds crazy, but stick with me here because by the end of this story you might just be shocked as I am. Now it all started with a late night scroll through our free educational Discord. And yes, that's a shameless plug there, the link is in the description. Now someone shared a clip of a podcast where a wealth manager casually said, "Oh, I bet that BlackRock's gonna file for an XRP ETF soon. They're just running late to the party." Wait, what? BlackRock and XRP in the rather same sentence? I practically did a spit take with my coffee, as I usually do. I mean, BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, right? $10 trillion in assets, kind of large. And if you've even, or at least they even sneeze in crypto's direction, right, it's going to be news. And there was a guy hinting that BlackRock might actually have its sights on XRP, the one crypto that just got out of an ugly lawsuit with the SEC. Now, my skeptic alarm did, of course, go off, but so did my FOMO radar. Now, I had to know, is there actually something brewing here, or is this just hopium on overdrive? So I dove headfirst into that rabbit hole. Articles, tweets, late night YouTube interviews, you name it. And you won't believe what I found. There's one big reason that BlackRock hasn't filed just yet, and an even bigger reason why they eventually will. Now trust me here, we might just crack this XRP ETF mystery together. So picture me at 2 a.m, still eyes are bloodshot, many tabs open all over my screen. The first thing that I discover is that BlackRock is not filing for an XRP ETF just yet, and it is actually kind of a bit weird. See, a bunch of other companies have already lined up for just this. Names like Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, these guys started their XRP ETF applications back in late of 2024. Now they've been sitting in the SEC's waiting room, twiddling their thumbs ever since. Now the SEC, being the SEC, they just keep delaying decisions on those applications. Surprise, surprise. Now, in fact, there's a final deadline in Q4 2025 for the SEC to say yes or no onto some of these claims, or applications I should say. Now that's like tomorrow in bureaucratic kind of time. So yeah, the clock I guess is ticking. Meanwhile, BlackRock, the very same BlackRock that single-handedly kicked off the Bitcoin ETF frenzy, is just absent. It's kind of like everyone is lining up for a race and the biggest runner hasn't even shown up on the track. Now, why would BlackRock, of all the players, be late to a $1 trillion opportunity? Now, my conspiracy brain was whispering all sorts of strange things, but I just kept digging and I came across this interview with 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗧𝗧, the wealth manager who kind of sparked this whole idea. Now, he was on the Thinking Crypto podcast explaining what he thinks is actually going on. Now, Nate's not some random Twitter shill. He's the president of a firm called 𝗕𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, right? Wealth management, and pretty well known in the ETF circles. Now, the guy knows his stuff, and he flat out believes that BlackRock will file for an XRP and Solana ETFs. Plural, right? As in many of them. Now, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "I do believe BlackRock's going to file for both spot XRP and Solana ETFs. Maybe they're waiting for some formal regulatory framework to drop, and then they'll swoop in at the last minute." And swoop in at the last minute, those were his words. Now, that phrase kind of stuck with me here because I kind of gave it, or at least it gave me, this mental image, I guess, of BlackRock as the student who waits until the night before actually starting a project and actually aces it effortlessly, fashionably late, but making a grand entrance. Nate sounded convinced. He even noted that at this point, BlackRock is kind of getting late in the game. And I mean, the finish line is in sight after all, right? The SEC is going to have to decide on those other XRP ETF filings by late of 2025, and BlackRock still hasn't even put it on its running shoes just yet. Now, according to him, the delay isn't because BlackRock, is uninterested. It's because they're actually strategic. They might be waiting for clearer rules or some regulatory green light before jumping on in. So let's think about the strategy then, right? Let alone, or at least let others kind of do, I guess, all the early pushing and the shoving. Wait until the path is cleared and then make your own move. It's the classic last minute hero play. And honestly, it kind of lines up with BlackRock's style, right? They aren't usually first to do risky things, right? They wait, they watch, they dominate, right, afterwards. Now, here's a quick history lesson. In 2021 and 2022, a bunch of companies tried to launch a Bitcoin ETF and the SEC swatted them down like flies. Now, BlackRock waited. Then, in mid-2023, boom, BlackRock files for a Bitcoin ETF with a novel twist, a special surveillance agreement to appease the regulators. Now, everyone went nuts, right? The crypto market literally pumped on the news of that filing because BlackRock's entity was like a stamp of approval. They basically said, now it's game time. And lo and behold, by 2025, their Bitcoin ETF, the iShares Trust, became the biggest in the world, pulling in tens of billions of dollars in investment. Now, typically, BlackRock's moves, don't be first, but be the first to do it right. And you know what? It paid off. So apparently the logic to XRP, right? Or at least apply that logic to XRP. BlackRock's not going to be the first to file, right? They're going to be the first to file successfully. So if that makes sense to you guys, right? Now, Nate even joked that if BlackRock doesn't eventually file, that means that they're effectively choosing winners then, only Bitcoin and Ether, and ignoring all the others, which doesn't really line up with BlackRock's philosophy, right? BlackRock's all about capturing the entire market, not just two different assets. So honestly, right, he has a bit of a point here. BlackRock doesn't usually make one-off bets, right? They're actually covering all their bases kind of player. That's kind of their attitude. Now, all of that kind of got me curious. What's BlackRock's broader crypto game plan then, right? Is there any evidence that they're interested in coins beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum? And oh boy, yes, there is, right? BlackRock has been busy in the background, right? Did you know that they actually launched a tokenized money market fund on the blockchain? Pretty nerdy stuff, I know, but basically they took a classic money market fund, a usually boring traditional finance kind of thing, and they put it on the Ethereum network. And then they expanded that experiment to Solana's blockchain too. Now, this is BlackRock that we're talking about here, not some kind of DeFi DJ, right? They're playing with Ethereum and Solana like it's no big deal. Now, that tells me that they see multiple blockchains as useful, they're not married to just Bitcoin, for example. So if they're cool with Ethereum and Solana for tokenized assets, why would offering an ETF for Solana or XRP be so far-fetched? It actually kind of aligns perfectly, right? They clearly believe in a multi-chain future and providing access to a variety of cryptocurrency assets. So let's talk about XRP specifically then for a second. Now, XRP to me has always been the kind of oddball in the crypto space. Huge, passionate community used by banks and payment providers, but also a little bit controversial. I mean, especially during that long SEC lawsuit. Now, for the longest time, XRP was kind of in its penalty box. A lot of exchanges even delisted it in the US for a while because of the lawsuit, right? But fast forward to now. Ripple, the company behind XRP, basically won a big victory. As of August 7th, 2025, the SEC's case against Ripple is done. It's dismissed, kaput, done, completely finished. Now, XRP, it is not labeled a security, and it's like a weight has been lifted. The price of XRP even popped when that news hit. I remember my phone blowing up with price alerts and celebratory memes. So now the XRP has something, it kind of desperately needed. Clarity. It's not in regulatory limbo anymore. If ever there was a time that an asset manager might actually feel comfortable launching an XRP investment product, it's going to be now. And guess who thrives when rules are clear? BlackRock. Now, they're practically licking their chops right now that biggest legal risk around XRP is actually gone. It's kind of like the roadblock was removed. Combine it with the SEC kind of warming up to the crypto ETFs in general. I mean, the SEC recently kind of started allowing some new mechanisms like in-kind redemptions for crypto funds, hinting that they're getting more comfortable with the idea. There's even, talk in ETF circles that by October 2025, the SEC could approve some of these altcoin ETFs if all goes well. Things are moving. So at this point in my research, all the prices were coming together in my, or at least all the pieces were coming together in my mind, right? BlackRock loves index-styled kind of broad exposure. Check, right? BlackRock has already dipped its toes in multi-chain projects, Ethereum Solana. Check. XRP's legal issues are resolved. Check. Investor demand potentially high. Big check. And let me tell you about that demand, right? I came across an interesting tidbit. Even before any spot XRP ETF exists, investors have been so hungry for XRP exposure that products like future-based ETFs have been in demand, right? Futures-based, meaning that the fund doesn't hold actual XRP, just contracts. Now, those are typically less ideal, right? They have high, at least have fees and, tracking errors and all of that, right? People are buying them because, well, there's no spot ETF just yet. So if people are willing to settle for the knockoff version, you know that they're going to jump on the real deal if it does come, right? Every indication is that a spot XRP ETF, especially with BlackRock's name on it, would be a rather hot item. Now, speaking of investors, let's get into why BlackRock does any of this. It's not because Larry Fink, BlackRock's CEO, woke up one day and fell in love with XRP's technology. Nah. Now, BlackRock is driven by one thing: profit and client demand, right? Now, if their clients want crypto exposure, BlackRock will find a way to give it to them as long as it is safe, legal, and lucrative, right? Now, Nate's point, it at least pointed this out too, right? BlackRock isn't in the business of, picking which crypto has the best tech. They're just looking at where the market's interest is. And right now, there's clearly interest in assets beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's only logical that they actually expand their offerings. Now, quick reality check, because I know I'm hyping up XRP right now, right? Maybe a little bit too much for some people's likings, but let me be super clear on just one thing. And this one, it might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so I had to say that, you know how it is. Now, let's get back to the story. Now, by now, right, I'm pretty much convinced myself that a BlackRock XRP ETF is not only possible, but is more than likely on the horizon, right? At least in my opinion. So what does that mean for me and then for you guys? Well, let's say that BlackRock files tomorrow for this thing, right? First off, headlines everywhere, right? It would be on CNBC, Bloomberg, you name it. And you can bet that the XRP community on Twitter or X or whatever we're going to be calling it today would actually lose its collective mind. Then price of XRP would probably react a bit, maybe a big spike from excitement, but even beyond prices, it would be a pretty big milestone, a sort of validation moment for XRP itself. So let's think about it, right? A year ago, people were arguing if XRP is an unregistered security or not. Now you can have the most TradFi or TradFi institutions saying we want to offer XRP to our clients. Now that's a narrative, 180 style, right? It's kind of like the thing that might make skeptics actually take a second look at XRP. For everyday investors, a spot ETF means easier access. Not everyone is comfortable, of course, setting up crypto wallets, dealing with exchanges, worrying about hacks, or forgetting passwords. An ETF lets you buy XRP exposure with a click in your brokerage account, alongside your stocks and your mutual funds. Now that's huge, right? And I have a buddy, let's call him Dan, who, always kind of refused to touch crypto directly, but he buys crypto ETFs because they fit into his traditional individual accounts. And for someone like Dan, a BlackRock XRP ETF would be a green light to finally get some skin in the game. Now, personally, I'm more of a hands-on crypto kind of guy. If I want XRP, I just go and buy it, usually on Kraken Pro, to be honest. They've got a decent interface and low fees. Here's a side note though, right? I do have an affiliate link for Kraken Pro that's in the description that supports the channel here. So if you're looking for a place to trade, you can check it out. No pressure, of course. Anyway, I'm having the actual asset myself in my own wallet, right? Because I can use it, I can move it, and I can admire it on the blockchain. But hey, that's just me. I totally understand why some people would actually prefer the ETF route. It's simpler, it feels safer, and it fits into traditional portfolios easily. Now, one interesting angle here is that BlackRock might not stop at just an XRP ETF. I mentioned that they could do Solana too. Now, Nate and others suspect that BlackRock might eventually roll out a whole suite, like one by one, Bitcoin, Ethereum, then XRP, Solana, maybe others like Polygon down the line, right? And possibly even a grand crypto index fund that holds a basket of the top 10, right? BlackRock is a big index fund believer after all, right? If they truly believe in broad exposure, well, they might create something like a crypto 10 index ETF. And that sounds, so at least should guess what, right? If you ever get something like that, to do that, well, you'd want to have all of those single asset ETFs like XRP, Solana, etc., all in place, or at least in progress, right? Because it's going to be easier to mix and match that way around. And again, right, this is me just theorizing at 2 a.m. after too much caffeine, but if kind of fits, right? It kind of fits that BlackRock, in my opinion, might dominate this whole category. Nate said something else that I found quite telling. BlackRock already has the largest Bitcoin and Ether funds. So if they just stop there and ignore XRP on Solana, it's kind of illogical, right? They'd be kind of conceding, I guess, to their competitors in multi-asset crypto space. And BlackRock does not like kind of, I guess, receding or letting other competition gain more ground. And trust me, right? They've got more, they're more the kind of plant the flag on every single kind of hill kind of type. So if you ask me, they might not let another firm be the first with an XRP ETF. The moment that they sense the SEC is cool with it, BlackRock will be all over it like cheese on pizza. Now, a funny thing here, a year ago or 2 years ago, if you had told me that BlackRock would maybe even consider something like XRP, I probably would have laughed at you. But this was the company whose CEO once called Bitcoin probably a money laundering tool. And I remember the kind of soundbite, right? We all do. How times do change. Now, the same CEO is bullish on crypto's future, talking about the tokenization of assets, and BlackRock is plugging crypto into its products. It's a little bit poetic, the establishment and the rebels coming together. Anyway, I'm just amazed at how quickly things are evolving here. And I want to stress this, right? Nothing's ever guaranteed, right? Could BlackRock decide, nah, we'll stick with Bitcoin and Ether, we're good? Maybe, right? But I do doubt it for all of the reasons that we've gone over today, right? Could the SEC throw in a wrench and say, we're not approving any of these altcoin ETFs for another 5 years? It's also possible, right? They can be party poopers after all, right? But the momentum and the logic, it does seem to be pointing towards that these things eventually will be happening, possibly even sooner than maybe many people think. Now, I also realize that some of you might be thinking, okay, it's a cool story, but what do I do with all of this info? And the answer is nothing crazy, right? It's not financial advice. Remember the whole disclaimer that I dropped to you guys earlier, right? My goal here is just sharing this is not to get you all to ape into XRP or to daydream about moonshots. It's to give you a peek into the dynamics that are at play. Personally, I'm holding my XRP and feeling a little bit more positive about it. I might add gradually if the price is right and I have some spare cash that I'm not afraid to lose. But I'm not going to be betting my house on it or anything silly. You got to stay rational, And so if BlackRock files, I might celebrate with a nice extra cup of coffee that day. Maybe Irish coffee. Who knows, right? I'll certainly be making an excited video update if that news drops, because that's history in the making for crypto. And And for fairness here, Solana, I said that I'd mention it, so here's a little quick bit. Just as BlackRock likely wants XRP, they likely want Solana too. Solana's been gaining a lot of credibility in the TradFi circles. It's super fast and all of that if it can stay online, and BlackRock's already kind of played with Solana via the tokenized fund project. So a SOL ETF could be easier on their to-do list, right? Or at least easily on their to-do list, I should say. Now, if I hold any Solana, which I actually do, I'd be rather excited for that, right? But the reason that I focus on XRP here is that because the narrative and timing around XRP is super interesting right now. It's fresh legal win, etc. Also, I'll admit, I've got a soft spot for XRP. It was one of the first crypto investments that I made years ago, and seeing it potentially get its day in the sun with Wall Street would actually be full circle moment for me. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Here is my takeaway. BlackRock potentially filing for a spot XRP ETF is no longer a wild fantasy. It's something very plausible that could only be right around the corner. Now, the signs are there. Credible industry insiders are talking about it. The regulatory environment is shifting, and BlackRock's own moves hint at a broader crypto strategy. If and when it happens, it could open up the floodgates for a lot of new money into XRP and mark a major milestone in crypto mainstream journey. But even if it doesn't happen immediately, the fact that we're even having this conversation, that BlackRock and XRP are being mentioned in the same breath, is evidence of how far the crypto world has come. Now, I'm going to be keeping my eyes glued to the news for any hint of BlackRock making a move, and you bet I'll be discussing it with everyone in our Discord community in real time. So if you're not in there, consider this an invite. It's completely free, it's educational, and honestly, it's a lot of fun to speculate with others. The link is in the description, like I mentioned. So, are we crazy for thinking BlackRock might jump on XRP? Maybe just a little bit, but hey, a little crazy is how big ideas start, right? Now, I'm curious, what do you think? Will BlackRock make this move, or are we all reading tea leaves here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below or in the Discord server, right? And either way, it's going to be a fascinating, fascinating to watch whatever happens next. And whether, whatever kind of does happen, I'm going to be here to break it all down and maybe even share another midnight coffee-fueled story with you guys. So if you've enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all in the next one.